One of Us is a dialogue podcast profiling people in and around the Diocese of Wilmington. It also appears in writing in the print edition and online at thedialogue.org. The featured subject could be someone who works behind the scenes at your church or school, volunteers at the parish, or is a regular churchgoer or longtime parish member. Do you want to suggest a person to be profiled? My name is Mike Lang, and I'm a staff writer here at The Dialogue. Drop an email to me at mlang@thedialogue.org or call 302-295-0637 if you have a suggestion for an interview subject. Jack Coons is a parishioner at St. Anne's in Wilmington, and he was nominated as a One of Us candidate by the people at Ursuline Academy, where he is a teacher. Jack, thanks for joining us, and tell us what do you teach here at Ursuline?
Yeah, thanks for having me. So this will be my third year at Ursuline. I teach AP U.S. Government, I teach U.S. History and World History. Last year I taught economics, so I cover seniors, juniors, and freshmen, and I also coach lacrosse.
And how did you end up here at Ursuline?
Actually, word of mouth. Some people that I know from the community, neighbors, also people from St. Anne's mentioned that Ursuline needed a couple of substitute teachers. I went in, and they had just had an opening for a history teacher, and I had gone to the University of Notre Dame to be a teacher, so it just worked out perfectly, and one thing led to another, and here I am all these years later.
And how's it going for you here?
I absolutely love it. I love all-girls education. I love being able to share about my faith and listen to their faith here, and I think we really have a wonderful faith-based, academically rigorous, and athletically proud program here, so happy to be a Raider every single day.
Great. Now, you grew up in Wilmington?
Yes, sir.
And a member of St. Anne's. Where did you go to grade school and high school?
So I went to Wilmington Friends from pre-K to my graduation in 2018, so I was there from as early as I could be until as late as they'd let me be there.
Now, I know at Friends you were on the swim team.
So I actually was a wrestler.
A wrestler, okay.
Ironically. So I did a lot of summer swimming, and a family friend from summer swimming is what got me into coaching at Friends, but I coached summer swimming at Shellcrest, but I played soccer, I wrestled, I played lacrosse, and then I even ran cross country, played baseball, and ran track. I did as many sports as I could at Friends.
Obviously, with Friends similar to Ursuline as far as size of the school, and you have a lot of multiple sport athletes. Now, why did you get into teaching?
Well, I think I made that decision sometime around my freshman or sophomore year at Notre Dame, but I'd always loved coaching. I'd loved working with kids, and I really, really enjoy history. I love not only learning more about it, but learning why it happens, and I thought if I could spend more time in school, get to work with kids, help them grow both as students in the academic sense, but also as people, and more importantly, in the sense of Ursuline, through the faith, I couldn't think of a better job. So I did a history degree at Notre Dame, a theology minor, medieval minor, and then also took classes on how to teach. Sounds
like you kept yourself pretty busy. And Jack and I, our paths, as we were talking beforehand, our paths crossed many years ago, and we wouldn't have known it, but it's very Delaware.
It really is, and it's one of those things where I've seen you a lot. I don't think I've ever formally introduced myself, but every sports game I've been at involving Ursuline, you're there.
That's what it feels like. I'd love to do it. So tell us about, we know you're a teacher. Tell us a little bit about your family.
Yeah, so I'm one of five. I have a twin brother, Mike, who went to UPenn and is getting ready to go to med school. He's not sure where, but he's down to two options. I have a sister, Maggie, who went to NYU for acting and lives in New York and is pursuing that tough dream of being an actress. I've got a mom, Anne, and a dad, Chris. My mom was a stay-at-home mom, which I think is not only the hardest job in the world, but the best job. And my dad is the United States Senator for Delaware and works very hard. And then my grandparents, I'll bring my mom's parents into it because my granddad, Anthony, and my grandmother, Dorothy, are really instrumental in my faith. And my grandmother, Dorothy, is still living and just moved back. So wherever my dad was busy, my grandparents would cover. So if my dad had votes and couldn't make a wrestling tournament, my grandparents were there. So very much the two of them are like secondary parents to me.
So what's the most important part of your spirituality?
I think the two things, if I could lump them together, would be prayer and action. I think it's important to be deeply rooted in prayer to build a road for God and for Christ to come into our lives, and that's achieved through prayer. So whether it's the rosary, whether it's praying to the intercession of saints, whether it's having a spare moment just to reflect on the wonders of life, I think prayer is an outstanding building block to help establish a sense of faith, a sense of connection, and to really, as we mentioned with Mary, calling your mother through the rosary. And then through action, I think it's important that our thoughts and our prayers come to fruition. I think in particular of Matthew 25, 35 through 40, where Christ says, right, you fed me when I was hungry, you clothed me when I was naked, you visited me when I was in prison, you cared for me when I was sick. We need to not only be Catholics on Sunday in the pews and in our private homes in prayer, but we need to be Catholics in our community, and that's living the Beatitudes, that's living the commandments, that's living the gospel of Christ, and that's being engaged and active. As I unfortunately can't remember what the one song is, they'll know we're Christian by our name and by our action. So those to me are the two most important things in my spirituality.
So when you were growing up here in Wilmington and also at Notre Dame, I'm sure you were involved in some, besides the sports, which sounds like it took up a lot of your time. What other kind of things? Did you do some community service? Sounds like that is right up your alley.
Absolutely. So I was a lacrosse coach my junior year, and I was able to help out again last year at Ferris, which is the all-boys juvenile detention center. I want to shout out Lee Powers and some other people from Wilmington Friends. We helped start the first lacrosse program at a juvenile detention center in the country, and it was really good to give, at that point, kids who are my age, just on the opposite side of the fence, unfortunately, and realizing how much we have in common, giving them an opportunity to play a game that I love and have played my whole life. I did that. I went on a service trip to El Paso, Texas. I volunteered, coached at Shellcrest for a couple hundred hours. I worked at the Emmanuel Dining Room through the Franciscans. And as many times as I could through friends, whether it was service opportunities through Martin Luther King Day or things through St. Anne's Parish, trying to keep myself busy. At Notre Dame, we did a lot of fundraisers and charity events for the University of Notre Dame in Bangladesh. We also worked on helping the local homeless population in South Bend through warm clothes drives because it gets really, really cold in South Bend. So obviously needed to make sure that those in our community are there. And now I try as much as I can to help with either service opportunities at Ursuline. So we've done things like going down to the Delaware Food Bank and we prepped food for Thanksgiving, or going to Faithful Friends, which is the no-kill shelter, and helping build cat homes. There's a lot of opportunities at Ursuline, and service is very easy to find. So it's a school that definitely lives the Christian mission. So yes, as juggling sports and service, but there's always time for Christ.
So what is it that keeps you going in your connection with the church?
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic question. I think unfortunately sometimes cradle Catholics will receive the sacraments, will go through it, and then there's a little bit of a fall off. And one of my I unfortunately didn't have him as a professor, but one of the priests that lived in my dorm at Notre Dame, Father Dan Grudy, mentioned that there's higher mass attendance at Notre Dame for the current students, and then it drops off for a lot of them when they leave. So he really wrestled with, is it a matter of routine and comfort because it's there, and that's why there's the drop off? And so to answer that, like, why do I keep coming back, right? Not to be funny, but my mom's not making me, no one's making me go. It's really on my own free will, and I'd say it's because the truth resides in the tabernacle. And the fact that I can receive Jesus Christ every single time I go to Mass, if in good conscience and faith, that's what drives me, knowing that the truth resides in the tabernacle, knowing that there's a community at St. Anne's, at St. Patrick's, at really any of the amazing churches in the Diocese of Wilmington that will uplift you, that will help support you, knowing how important the faith is at this school, all centered around the Eucharist. It's what keeps me coming back every single time. And obviously things like wonderful homilies. I've gotten to know Father Mink since I was really young, or beautiful music. All of that is fantastic, but at the end of the day, the thing that keeps me coming back, especially as a teacher, especially as an educator, and someone who really enjoys knowing the truth is the fact that it resides in the tabernacle.
So if you could change one thing in your life as a Catholic, and we've all thought about it, what would that be?
One thing I would definitely like to do more, and I did a good job last Advent, I'd like to go to daily Mass more. It can be difficult with work. I'm not the best planner. I use my planning first period to really get a lot of that work because, as I mentioned, I juggle lifting, I juggle swimming, I juggle coaching. So if I could, I would do that. But I would also say there's, again, as a history guy, there's just so much to uncover. I would like to know more. I like to think I have a decent understanding. I'm really thankful for a partial degree in theology from college and being able to learn about the lives of the saints and our faith. But there's 2,000 years of tradition just waiting to be unearthed. And all you need is time, which is the hardest commodity to have. But that's what I would say.
So here at Ursuline, there's a mix of Catholic, non-Catholics, friends, in your neighborhood, I'm sure, just in your everyday life. I don't know if you've ever had this conversation at Notre Dame. The non-church member comes to you and says, "Why should I be Catholic?" Has that happened? And if it did, would you tell them, or what would you tell them?
Yeah, I've had it happen a few times, but if, let's say it was someone I didn't know and they just came and asked me the same question you did, I would say that it's the joy and peace knowing that I'll never be alone because Christ is always there for me. I always appreciate at Catholic schools that we have crucifixes because it allows us to remember not only Christ's suffering, but that he suffered for us. He suffered for those he never met, that rebuked him, that don't like him. And especially in low moments, right? Mother Teresa and St. John talk about the dark days of the soul in which we feel devoid of God's presence. We're reminded that God is with us always, and that's where he's the closest. And knowing that Christ loves you no matter what, that God's mercy is unending, and that he will always, always be there for you like the prodigal son, right? Whenever you return home, he will always be there, arms open, and that Christ waits for you every single day. He's waited 2,000 years for you in the tabernacle for you to receive him through the Mass. It just fills me with such joy knowing that our communities are so amazing, that our people are so amazing, our Lord is so amazing. There's just so much joy and happiness that can be found in a life of Catholicism. And the one thing I have had to argue with people is they'll say, oh, but it puts up so many walls, it's so many rules to follow. And to that, I would reflect on G.K. Chesterton saying, the rules of the church are like walls on a sandbox. It allows the children at play to feel safe and comforted within the confines, but keeps them away from the dangers of the world. Whereas those without the walls and the rules stand centered, huddled over a cliff, fearful of what will happen. Though it might be, and it is tough to be Catholic at times, there's lots of rules and things to follow, but if we know the rules are just and we know the rules are established by Christ, then there's really no difficulty in it. And having that structure, that comfort of knowing that he's always there, that community that is so ever present is just so overwhelmingly good. I don't know how anyone would ever not want to be Catholic.
So you've talked about it a lot, and you may have answered this, but what does your faith mean to you?
It means everything. It's the most important aspect of myself. I would gladly strip away the title of teacher, son, brother, Notre Dame alum, just to be that of a Catholic. It's incredibly important, and I think the amazing thing about it is it's not something designated only to a few, but open to all. I think it's the most important thing of my life to be a follower and believer of Jesus Christ and to try my best to walk in his footsteps. So it's everything to me.
Well, Jack, I want to thank you for joining one of us, a profile on people who support the church in the Diocese of Wilmington. Don't forget to follow us online at thedialogue.org for your latest in Catholic news and features.